Hello and welcome to the Aid Station. I'm Chris Robb, and today hugely excited to be heading to Lausanne in Switzerland, where we meet Julie Royer-Coutts, who's got an incredibly exciting story. She's the CEO of Haute Route, or Haute Route. I never always get the pronunciation correct, and I'll get Julie to give it to us exactly. And Haute Route has just recently, in the OC group, been bought by IRONMAN, and as part of that growth, Julie now is the head of cycling for the IRONMAN group as well. Welcome, Julie. Great to see you.
Hi, Chris. Lovely to see you too.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story. Obviously, the whole story of OC Group and Haute Route and everything that's done and grown on to obviously attract the attention of IRONMAN. But you've got an amazing story yourself, and I always like to start on the Aid Station by getting a little bit of background and asking you to tell us some of your story and your journey so far.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation, Chris. So yeah, I'm Julie. I'm the CEO of Haute Route. And as you say, recently appointed head of cycling for the IRONMAN group. So I started my career in sports from the beginning. I was initially in sailing as part of what OC used to be, which is Offshore Challenge, led by Mark Turner at the time. And I was involved in international sailing circuits like the America's Cup or the Vendée Globe. In 2010, the company merged with a massive startup, which was led by Rémi Duchemin and Benjamin Chandelier at the time. And this is really where the Haute Route story has started. Just a great bunch of passionate sportsmen who got together the concept of the Haute Route and that crazy idea of an amateur sports event that will replicate what the professional were leaving. And my background is in marketing and communication. That was what I was doing for Offshore Challenge at the time. So I was brought in the project to support on the development and the grounds of Haute Route. And yeah, that was 10 years ago. I had a different experience within the project, and outside the project, a couple of years spent in the Middle East as well, working for a sports agency over there. And recently started working for Haute Route again with a more operational role and in charge of the development of the Haute Route since 2018. Where we're starting to develop the brand internationally with events in different continents. And yeah, that's where we are today. 2021, we just celebrated the 10-year anniversary of the Haute Alps. So it's been a big year for us.
Well, and it's an incredible story. Like you say, in 10 years, I remember the inaugural event, remember meeting Remy in Singapore with the extreme sailing then. And yeah. that was in the kind of formative years of it, and it's gone on. Give us a sense of how things are currently, both from a perspective of where your footprint is, what events have actually been able to happen, because we're hearing more and more great news out of Europe, but you obviously have events in the US and Middle East and China and Asia as well. I'd love to get a sense of the current situation from those perspectives.
Yeah, 2021, we managed to deliver a full European calendar so far, which has been incredible. Unfortunately, our destination in the US, in the Middle East, so we had Haute Route Mexico, Haute Route Brazil, and Haute Route Oman planned in the 2021 calendar. We haven't been in a position to deliver them. A mix of non-visibility on travel regulation, but as well situation in those countries that are unclear right now. So very happy to be able to deliver a strong European season, but obviously, what we had created over the last couple of years was an international circuit. So we feel frustrated not to be able to be in full swing for 2021. And the reality is 2022. We announced our calendar a couple of weeks ago now, and we will focus again on European destination. It's too difficult right now to see what 2022 will look like from an international traveling restriction.
Wow, interesting. And yeah, I must admit, I'm hearing more and more of that, of people starting to say, yeah, even early 2022, impossible to make business decisions. And I think that's the key thing now, isn't it? It doesn't really matter whether you get that approval or not. It's the commercial risk that's associated with putting all the planning on, sinking costs into these, and then having the short notice cancellations that you do have. So with that in mind, what would assuming that you had a proper calendar that you'd planned for, how many events would that be? And you said you've just delivered or you're in the midst of a European season. How many events? Tell us a little bit about the Haute Route concept, which is, you know, a really impressive concept that, you know, I've had a number of friends that have done it that love it. But for the uninitiated, tell us what that involves, some of the events you had, and what the situation is like. You know, it's enabled you to have a European season. Has that been under COVID safe restrictions, or is it totally open? How's that gone?
Yeah, so about the concept, which is obviously very important when we think about COVID, is the Haute Route is an itinerant event. So it's a cycling event that happens over 5 or 7 days, and we're moving from one place to another every day. The idea is obviously to cross the most iconic mountain range in Europe and in the rest of the world. So when you put the COVID layer on top of this, it just creates even more difficulties and challenges for an organizer. We very early in 2021, way before we start talking about vaccination passport or green pass or whatever, we decided internally that we needed to put this in place. We needed to have a way to track the testing for our riders during the week of the event. We needed to be able to confirm that we were not putting anyone at risk within our own event. So very early in the season, I would say in February or March, we have worked on a COVID protocol, health protocol, and work with the different authorities around us, including the local government, but as well our medical support team, to work on a process where riders will have to show proof of vaccination or PCR test ahead of the event. Obviously, in the next couple of months after that, the government itself have inputted was a restriction, but it is something that very early we had already put in place. That has helped us in different ways. First, giving us some sort of visibility, and at least because the restriction were changing like on a daily basis in different countries, and we needed to have something to work on. So we decided to be even stricter on us than the local government was at the time, in order to have the visibility of what our season could look like. Giving ourselves visibility allowed to give visibility to our clients and for them to start picturing themselves into coming and attending the event. Then the travel restriction was another issue. Things have been changing. Literally on a daily basis. Quarantine, no quarantine, testing, no testing, proof of. So that's the one thing we couldn't really do much about. And the peloton of the Haute Route is very international. We've got between 35 and 45 different nationalities on the start line. So we have a wonderful customer service that have been keeping track on the different regulation in each of the country, and really trying to have a hotline with our customers saying, okay, this is what we see in the situation, this is what we believe could be at the time of the event, and really trying to give extra support to our clients and for them to make the right decision within attending or not. And then I guess the third thing that we have done as well is trying to be as flexible as possible when it comes to refund, transfer. We have developed what we call internally an e-wallet, which is a credit that is available for our clients to use in the future. With trying to have as limited restriction as possible on this. I mean, we didn't be commercially viable, of course. So, we have to limit the risk for the business. But this is really what we have tried to do is provide support, I would say.
Wow, so it's a huge amounts of challenges and like almost becoming an event organizer and a travel agent kind of wrapped into one, understanding all those different jurisdictions. And I was talking, we have our strength in numbers calls. I was talking to Mike Nishi, the COO of Chicago Marathon, and he was talking about, the massive amount of additional admin work. And that was one of the areas he identified, this call center and supporting all the runners and understanding all the different jurisdictions. And then, so you overcome all of that, you get to event day and you've delivered those events successfully. What have the main challenges been operationally when you kind of get into event mode? You've got past the pre-event thing, your participants have arrived. What are some of the biggest challenges on the ground?
We've created an extra step in our registration process, which obviously was a health check where, people had to provide a proof of, vaccination, green pass, whatever. So that has created a little bit of a delay and operational nightmare to put in place because it has to be very early in your process, and the local authorities have different expectation when it comes to it as well, inside, outside. So that has created a little bit of an operational nightmare. Once we got the first event in and got it wrong, we obviously make it better for the next events. But yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is we had a mobile testing facilities that we have developed with our medical support. So we had, as I said, we itinerant events, so moving from one place to another to every day over weekends and stuff. So we couldn't really rely on the local facilities. We had to provide our own, so flexible in terms of hours and speaking English in different languages for our riders. So we had our own mobile testing facilities, which we had to care for. And obviously you need to have the link between that facilities and the laboratories who was doing the testing and delivering the results. So that mechanism has, took some time to figure it out and putting it in place. And then obviously the big risk and scare for everyone is that one of those tests come back positive, and what do we do? So, and touching wood, that hasn't happened so far this year, and it's a proof that our process has been well applied and well respected by all the parties, which is wonderful. But that constant scare and question mark, you can feel it during the event, the what if.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. And so, so many of the other events have testing in place, but it's at an expo in a fixed location. You add that extra complexity of being on the road. Huge amount of leadership involved there in terms of leading a team on that. And then, this wonderful new role, as we said at the start, been purchased by IRONMAN. You've now got this wonderful opportunity to head up their cycling division with a view of growing cycling as a sport. Talk to us a little bit about leadership. So, obviously strategic, visionary stuff there, managing people, managing those teams that you've just alluded to, having to deal with all those complexities. What is some of the vision that you might be able to share? I'm sure some of it's confidential about where you might be going with that new role from a cycling perspective, and then any leadership principles that you apply on a day-to-day basis to your team.
Leading a team on event was the easiest thing. Obviously we've been a year and a half without being in a position to deliver events. So it was wonderful to see the dynamic around, delivering the event and the passion and positivism that there was around it. What was, from a leadership standpoint, what was the hardest is being able to manage a team and create that once you are working remotely behind a computer with all your team completely stretched around, France or UK, wherever they were based. That was truly difficult. And we, if you know the Haute Route, and if some of our listeners have done the Haute Route before, they will agree with me that what is very exceptional about the Haute Route is the spirit, the team spirit that there is, and the customer service that I was mentioning. We do have a team of young professionals that are so passionate about what they're doing, so passionate about the event life, that they are thriving on events. But having this to work when you are not on event and we are locked inside your house, and it was very, very difficult. So it was a lot of creativity during those months of COVID, where we tried to push ourselves, thinking out of the box and trying to engage within each other in different ways, and creating different way to work. So little things, but we created a yoga course every week, where we could have everyone there doing something together, and really trying to lead the team through thinking differently, thinking out of the box, and being creative in their personal life as well as their professional life during this time was very rewarding, but very hard work as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that whole the mix of personal and professional has just become so much closer, hasn't it? During these times, the lines are completely blurred, and organisations that lose sight of that, I think, are going to really struggle. I think it's
Yeah.
part of the future, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think this is probably the approach and the new balance that we're going to find now that things are getting back into normal. It's going to be a huge challenge as well. We all need to readjust into what a working life is and a personal life is, and how does that work together.
As always, time flies. I'd love to end with something inspirational. You clearly have inspired your team, an inspirational story. Is there something that you'd like to end on that might be inspirational?
Well, again, to follow on the leadership discussion we just had, I mean, there's a couple of things that the way I approach some of those challenges, especially during the COVID, and the way we approach it with the team, that I think are enabling us to thrive under the stress or facing a challenge. I really like to apply a personal motto of mine, that is, everything is a process. I like the fact of seeing a big challenge as little steps. And it comes from my background in swimming, where you have a big distance to cover, and I like to split it into smaller distance. And this way you can you don't get defeated easily, and you can celebrate small achievements. And facing a big challenge from a professional standpoint as well is the same. I like to celebrate the small step to get to a big challenge, or a big overcome a big problem. So it's something that I really try to apply in personal life and a work life as well. And it's a great way to stay focused and positive while facing a big challenge. And throughout the COVID, it's really something that we try to apply within the team. Is let's not look too far ahead, because we don't know what it looks like. Focus on the small step, focus on what we can do, focus on the positive, and making things change on a small term, and then that will get us to the big objective. So yeah, it's just a personal motto of mine that was very true during that time of COVID.
Hugely powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, so often we get kind of caught up in focusing on the end goal and missing the journey along the way. And yeah, I think it's wonderful, really wonderful way to end. Thank you, Julie. Wonderful to talk. I wish you all the very best for the new role and the rest of the year ahead, and hopefully a hugely successful 2022. Thanks so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Chris.